Whenever we talk about what the Lakers need and maybe the missing piece to their current roster, the term that's often referred to is a 3-and-D wing, which in my opinion I probably would agree with. At this current moment, they don't really have a reliable option, not a guy that's a proven 3-and-D option. Guys like Marcus Smart, who's good on defense but not quite reliable offensively. A guy like Dalton Knecht, who's been good offensively but not good defensively. Same with Rui Hachimura, good offensively but not quite to that level on defense. Or then for Jared Vanderbilt, good on defense but not offensively. And the last guy that's kind of in that conversation is probably Jake Laravia, the guy that probably has the best argument to become a 3-and-D wing. Only 23 years old and showed some dramatic improvement last season, really on both ends of the court. For the first time shooting above 35% from 3, which is kind of the barometer and kind of the baseline to become a 3-and-D wing, that being the 3-point shooting part. Then the defense, you can point to either the eye test or the numbers, but you gotta be at least average to get the 3-and-D kind of definition and the 3-and-D skill set, which Jake Laravia did show capable of last season. Now the only question is, can he maintain it? Can he become that for their team and therefore they don't have to make a trade for one or try to add one through either the buyout market or later on in free agency? Maybe. And if you ask me, it could maybe be a combination between both Jake Laravia and Jared Vanderbilt together. Vanderbilt obviously offering more defense but having a ton of room for improvement left offensively, which he finally has time and the ability to get on the court to work on this summer, finally having a healthy offseason for literally the first time in 2 years now. Jake Laravia, the same can be said for him, having a fully healthy offseason and therefore having room to work on defense and his all-around game as well. So between the two of them, they might be able to fill that 3-and-D wing aspect for the team, therefore again making them not have a need for it and maybe something they don't desperately have to trade for, which would obviously be a good thing. And between the two of them, I'm really looking forward to watching them next season. Everything in regard to their development, kind of what they have to offer the team and their role on the team next season. So we're going to talk about that and break down what it maybe will or should look like with the team. So without further ado here, beginning by talking about Jake Laravia, as he is a new addition for their team and therefore I have more to talk about with him. And Jake Laravia is obviously very young yet, only being 23 and therefore has a ton of room for growth on both ends of the court. But for the Lakers team and what they need from him especially next season, will be more reliable defense. And he showed a little bit of it last season. Whether you're talking about, again, the eye test or the numbers, he definitely did show improvement on defense, having a plus 1.1 defensive BPM rating, and the fact that he defended not only one position but literally 1 through 4 on the court is actually a pretty good sign that Laravia is improving on defense, showing more commitment on defense, and might be able to become a fairly versatile defender too. Per BBallIndex.com, Jake Laravia defended point guards roughly 17% of the time last season, having a C grade while doing so, defending shooting guards roughly 29% of the time, also having a grade of a C defending them, defending small forwards roughly 27% of the time, this being his best matchup and having an A grade when matched up with small forwards, then defending power forwards roughly 19% of the time, also having a fairly decent grade here with a B-, then defending centers roughly 8% of the time, grading out with a D here. So pointing to that, he definitely does defend his own position pretty well, that being small forward, and that's kind of what I point to with him, and thankfully that's kind of what the Lakers need most here. Apart from Jared Vanderbilt, they don't really have a big wing defender, so after Vanderbilt, and I guess if you want to throw a Duthero in there too, though he's not likely to be part of their rotation or not every game rotation in my opinion, then I'd probably point to Jake Laravia as their next best option, which might sound a bit funny, but he did show it last season too. And although you might compare his body type and position to a Rui Hachimura for example, though they're actually very different and they move very different too. Yes, they're both roughly 6'8" and 235 pounds to 240 pounds, having a pretty well developed frame, but Jake Laravia is a lot more mobile in regard to side-to-side athletic ability. Rui Hachimura is a bit more athletic in regard to north-to-south athletic ability, probably being a better vertical leaper, but for defense you definitely need more side-to-side movement if you're guarding perimeter players, which both of them do plenty for their team and Laravia is simply better at doing it. I mean, pointing to his screen navigation for one thing, this is kind of my main complaint with Rui Hachimura, isn't good at getting around screens and navigating the court on defense. Therefore his best position on defense is power forward and even small ball center at times. Not really a small forward or kind of a guard defender, he doesn't do that very well in my opinion, but Jake Laravia actually does it fairly well and again he showed it last season too. For example, here he is matched up with Desmond Bane, a former teammate, and having to navigate a few screens while trying to keep up with him. Laravia is actually able to do it, even while keeping up with a really quick guy like Desmond Bane, and not to mention a great 3-point shooter, so he has to stay attached to him. Laravia does a pretty damn good job here, and again, most importantly, is able to keep up with Desmond Bane, which eventually leads to him creating a turnover, Desmond Bane not being able to get away from him or then get past him on a drive to the rim. Then he tries to pass over the top of Laravia's head and Laravia deflects it away. Or then the next time down the court, showing off his switchability a little bit, guarding Desmond Bane and picking him up at half court, navigating a screen and then switching on defense to Lamar Stevens. Stevens trying to basically run right through Jake Laravia. Laravia's build holding up and once again deflecting a pass for another turnover for their team. Now obviously we're only looking at 2 examples here, so don't dig too much into it. You can definitely find other plays where Laravia doesn't do the right thing here or maybe gets lost on a screen, but if we're comparing him to a Rui Hachimura or simply what the Lakers don't have much of on defense, especially on the wing, I'd say that Jake Laravia does have potential to fill that role for their team, adding another guy that's not simply Jared Vanderbilt, a guy that actually can be a 3-and-D option potentially. That's what Laravia might be able to offer their team, really on both ends of the court. And then talking more about that offense, I think this is more the given with him. I'm actually fairly confident in Jake Laravia maintaining what he did last season, not only in regard to the scoring production or the 3-point shooting, but all around getting better on defense and maintaining what he did again too. Whether you're talking about the 3-point shooting, not gonna say he'll replicate the 42.3%, but I think shooting at or above 40% is very believable, especially when coming to a team with better playmakers like Luka Doncic and LeBron James, so that will definitely help him out. Or then simply talking about his ability to create for himself. Actually is a pretty good ball handler and actually probably a lot better than you might think. Is pretty crafty. Then with his rather large build, if a smaller defender is guarding him, he can bully them and get directly to the rim. So that's an advantage for Jake Laravia, whether you're talking about his on-ball ability, off-ball ability with 3-point shooting, or simply everything he can do offensively, is a fairly versatile option, and not to mention can play anywhere from shooting guard, small forward, even power forward. That's definitely an advantage for him in the rotation and likely could lead to more playing time for himself too. And while I'm definitely not pinning him and Jared Vanderbilt against each other, I think they'll actually share the court quite often and probably will be a pretty good wing fit together. One thing I would point to Jake Laravia with, and if he can maintain it or even improve it, then they might have a lesser need for Jared Vanderbilt on the court. Not only with the defense, that's kind of the first thing to point to with it, but also the rebounding with him. He's actually a better rebounder than Rui Hachimura in my opinion. Last season grabbing roughly 7 of them per 36 minutes, also grabbing 2.5 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes. Again, does have a fairly similar build to Rui Hachimura, but is also quick and a bit more athletic in regard to side-to-side movement on defense, so that could help him out and potentially take away minutes from maybe both Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura in some matchups, so that's another thing to point to with Jake Laravia. And overall, while there definitely tend to be a lot of ifs with Jake Laravia, if he can maintain his 3-point shooting and overall offensive production, if he can improve on defense and show what he did at moments last season and throughout his young career, if he can do that and build off of that, then he could potentially fill a big role for their team and maybe even become a starter down the line for their team. Definitely a lot of ifs here, but I do like the outlook with Jake Laravia with their team. But how about for Jared Vanderbilt? Is he simply what he is at this point and there's no room left for him and no hope left for him to improve? In my opinion, I really don't think so. Yes, unfortunately, he hasn't really shown much improvement in the past 2 years, but I would really point to his time off the court and not being able to be on the court from his injuries, mainly throughout the summer and therefore not being able to work on his game and really his offensive game. I'd point to more of that holding him back, rather than a lack of caring or trying to get better, or simply not having the ability to get better. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say that he's going to come out there and be a 35% 3-point shooter. I'm not sure I would hope for that, but I'm definitely hoping for some 3-point shooting improvement here. Not only 3-point shooting, but all-around offensive game in general. Hopefully getting back to his comfortability on offense like he was during the 2022-23 NBA season. I'd point to that and say that he looked better at that time and for whatever reason got less comfortable offensively, less comfortable with the ball in his hands, and definitely has to work on that in his game. So between all of that, I really hope he's working on it and we actually can point to it with him. Working out with NBA trainer Chris Johnson throughout the summer, working on his 3-point shot, ball handling ability, passing ability, simply comfortability with the ball in his hands. So if that can translate to the actual NBA court and NBA action, then Vanderbilt could become a more valuable player for them and definitely spend more time on the court with their team too. I mean, after all, there's really zero question about the guy's defense or rebounding ability for that fact too. The only kind of minor one being the role they put him in and the defensive role they ask of him. I've often mentioned this and pointed to it, so I won't go on a tangent again, but that's probably the one thing I liked about Darvin Ham with Jared Vanderbilt compared to what JJ Redick has done with their team and with Jared Vanderbilt specifically. Darvin Ham letting Vanderbilt be more of that defensive pest and kind of to run mayhem on defense. Redick putting him more around the rim and defending bigger players rather than on-ball players all the time, and you can directly point to that throughout the season and really with the players he matched up with. I'm hoping he gets more back to that, and if he does, I have no question about his ability to be the elite defender that he once was for their team, take on the best matchup on the court every game no matter what player we're talking about. Vanderbilt can defend 1 through 4 on the court and therefore can match up with pretty much any player on the court other than true centers, so again, not too worried about him on defense, not worried about his rebounding ability, simply worried about his game on offense and ability to become a bit more reliable for their team. Expectation wise, I guess I'd say above 30% for their team from 3. You know, not going to expect him to knock down 2 to 3 of them per game, but hopefully around 30% overall, 30 to 33%, ideally around 35%, but not going to ask too much from him yet. Corner 3-point shooting between 35 to 38%, and believe it or not, he actually was at that last season. Obviously taking a very low volume of them, so don't read too much into it, but did shoot 37.5% on corner 3s for their team last season. So if he could do more of that and take a little bit more of them, then I'd actually be pretty happy with Vanderbilt in regard to 3-point shooting. Though in regard to the all-around offense stuff, knowing when to cut and make timely backdoor cuts, that's something I again thought he was better at one time and really didn't show much of it last season. Being more comfortable with the ball, not having butterfingers when he has the ball and being a bit turnover prone at times, simply knowing where to be on the court and being a bit more comfortable with their offense, and in year 2 of JJ Redick's offensive system, that's what I'm looking for with Jared Vanderbilt and hoping for him to show improvement on too. And well, between the both of Jared Vanderbilt and Jake Laravia, definitely 2 guys that could make a gigantic difference to their team, potentially 2 guys that could prevent a trade from happening on their team, again that being for a 3-and-D wing and therefore filling the need for their team rather than having to give up trade assets to do it. They definitely have plenty of expectations to fill in their team, but I think they're capable of doing it, especially for Jake Laravia, and hopefully with Jared Vanderbilt offensively too. But with all of that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the outlook for both Jake Laravia and Jared Vanderbilt, and what do you think they have to be working on this summer? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.